Thank you, everyone, for taking time to attend today's webinar. Before we do anything, we would like to take this opportunity to just honor the contribution that Mr. Eric Kimungunyi, who is now departed, had on the crop protection industry. And therefore, I would like us to just have a minute of silence, just to appreciate him and to be able to recognize how much he has done for the industry. So a minute of silence, please. Thank you very much. I would like now to take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Agatha Thuo to take us through the opening remarks. Thank you and welcome, Ms. Agatha.
Thank you very much, Meron. And good morning. It's morning still here actually it's afternoon, just gotten into afternoon. And good evening, whatever the time is in your countries. I take this opportunity to sincerely thank you because of organizing this webinar. So my name is Agatha Thuo. I am an advisor to the Minor Use Foundation, and I am the CEO of the Agriculture Sector Network in Kenya, which is an umbrella body representing the collective voice of the agriculture sector in Kenya. So ASNET is actually the Agriculture Sector Board of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. I actually just stepped out of the memorial service that is organized in honor of Eric Kimungui. He was the CEO of the Agrochemical Association of Kenya, GRO, and AEK is actually a member of the network. So we are gathered right at AEK honoring the work that he has, the tremendous work that he has done on behalf of the Agrochemical Association of Kenya and the agriculture sector in Kenya. I am delighted to give an opening remarks during this very important event. The Minor Use Foundation will be representing priority challenges affecting specialty crops. I was saying I'm very delighted to give the opening remarks, and I want to thank the African member states, especially who participated in a priority setting activity that happened early this year, where over 5,000 nominations were received, signifying the importance of specialty crops in our economies. Actually, what the African continent is doing is really ensuring that we work closely together so that we can also increase trade amongst our member countries. And I'm so happy that Melon has been able to put this together. So fruits and vegetables species, herbs and other specialty crops that are vital for nutrition, livelihoods, and trade. African countries contribute heavily on the local and global supply of these crops, but continue to be faced with the myriad of challenges. The limited access to crop protection technologies is negatively impacting productivity, with repeated cases of misuse and off-label of pesticides and non-compliance to national and international market requirements. As the Minor Use Foundation continues its work to address these needs in Africa and looks to expand its programming in the region over the next few years, it is crucial that we get stakeholder feedback and ensure we are focusing on the right things. This webinar targets to discuss the identified global priorities and pinpoint the most pressing for Africa among them. As minor crops remain critical, we must be efficient with the resources, transparent, and focused on practical solutions. We therefore extend an invitation to stakeholders in Africa and global space, namely governments, crop protection industry, researchers, academia, so that we can actually be able to work together towards supporting this agenda. I think that is very important. So the foundation's mission is practical and global, to build the scientific and regulatory bridges that help minor uses move from problem to solution and from farm to market. We remain committed to support Africa member states to generate data, support registrations, and strengthen capacity on growers, particularly smallholders who can access lower risk tools and comply with international standards. Please reach out to our African regional manager, that is Meron. And I'm so happy that Meron is actually supporting these networks, including working very closely with the Advisory Council to discuss challenges affecting specialty crops and opportunities for collaborating and partnering in Africa. And therefore, I want to thank you so much for this initial webinar. I really look forward to many more. And we are fortunate to have a distinguished panel of experts who will share their reflections and contributions towards supporting specialty crops. This conversation for us as an African continent could not be more timely. With that, I will stop there, and it is my singular pleasure to invite our CEO, Anna. Anna, I have not even said hello to you individually, but I also really want to thank you because of the coordination that you are doing globally to ensure that we put a lot of emphasis in specialty crops under Minor Use Foundation. Thank you so much, Anna. And it is now my pleasure to ask you to give your opening remarks. In Africa, we say karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Agatha. Thank you for making the time to deliver this opening remarks to the group today. And thank you so much for your work in support of the foundation. We really value your partnership. So just turning to my presentation, let me just share my screen. And I'm going to build on what Agatha was just, some of the themes that Agatha was just mentioning, to share in a little bit more depth what we did in our priority setting process and how we see ourselves moving forward with our next steps. Just if someone could please confirm if they can see the presentation. And then also just to mention that, you know, in building on what Agatha was saying, we do view this meeting as an opportunity to consult with and validate our work with stakeholders. So we would be very grateful for your feedback when we get to the participatory part of the meeting later on. We'll be doing a Mentimeter and having Q&A, as was mentioned, and we would really value any input that you have for us in that portion of the meeting. This is really meant to be both information sharing as well as an opportunity for us to receive information and feedback from you all. So that's very critical. But I will now provide an overview of both the foundation, but also our priority setting process that we undertook this year. So at a high level, the Minor Use Foundation is an organization. We're a nonprofit registered in the US, although we are globally. We work globally, and our team is a global team. And we are trying to help support the trade of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and spices around the world. And particularly, we're focused on securing access to crop protection tools for specialty crops, whether that's conventional pesticides or biological pesticides. We're working to help strengthen the systems that can enable access to crop protection tools. We have a strategic plan, which can be found on our website, and our strategic plan has 4 main goals, which are laid out here: to amplify international attention and investment in specialty crops, to promote a regenerative approach to agriculture through increased biodiversity. Our third goal is to catalyze public-private partnership to facilitate trade of specialty crops. And our fourth is to facilitate smallholder uptake of crop protection technology. So I'm going to just get into a little bit more detail in terms of what we do. Companies that manufacture pesticides, we're going to be hearing later today from the crop protection industry. Those companies don't often have a monetary incentive to register crop protection tools for row crops, or they do have, a monetary incentive to register their products for row crops and not as much for minor crops. There's a huge amount of research and development dollars that goes into developing new crop protection tools. And there really isn't a lot of benefit to the companies to pursuing registrations in very small commodities. The cost is high and the return is low. Usually when companies are developing new crop protection tools, again, be it conventional pesticides or biological pesticides, they're focused primarily on a few key markets. They're pursuing specific challenges that are like in sugar, maize, corn, soy, wheat, those types of commodities that are heavily grown throughout the world. And they're trying to find solutions for those commodities because that's where a lot of the agricultural production is. But, you know, the smaller crops, fruits and vegetables, for example, they are really important for global food security. They're really important to global nutrition. They're also very high value crops in global trade. And they also need access to crop protection tools. They also suffer from pest and disease pressures. So that's where we try to leverage external resources to do the work, whether that's generating residue data for registrations or working with governments to leverage a crop grouping model and extrapolate data. Whatever it might be, we're working to get those crop protection tools registered for those commodities that need it. That's why we also work with regulatory systems and try to fill the gap of a lack of established MRLs. And then this is kind of just more description of the landscape. I'll go through it quickly. Low production of specialty crops is a problem based on lack of access to crop protection tools, lack of uptake of good agricultural practices for specialty crops. There's not as much information and international sort of guidance around specialty crop cultivation. A lot of times growers will use off-label, will use pesticides off-label in order to try to address the pest pressures that their crop is facing for specialty crops. So even though something may not be registered, if they know it works on a different crop, they may try it on a specialty crop. That can be effective, but it's not always safe. And it's not, in many countries, it's not legal to use things off-label. So our goal is to try to promote good agricultural practices and get things registered on labels so that growers know how to use things safely. We're trying to reduce non-compliances, which can be very disruptive to global trade. And we're trying to reduce those gaps in lack of MRLs, missing MRLs. So this is a graphic that shows the differentiation between, or sort of the contrast between global production by volume for fruits and vegetables relative to value. So here, and this is data that's taken from the FAO stat database, you can see that vegetables and fruits make up 5% roughly respectively of global production by volume. And they make up almost 4 times that by value. So you can see that they have much higher value than they do volume. So even though the production levels are relatively low in terms of overall global production by volume, they make up a substantial portion of global agricultural trade and the value. And this just gives you a sense of where we are, the Minor Use Foundation team globally, where we're working and what we're doing. So here you can see these light green color. This light green color denotes staff presence. So you can see that we have staff presence in the United States, and Australia. We also have staff in Colombia, Costa Rica, Kenya, and India. We have projects ongoing in Latin America. We have we received donor funding from Sweden and Germany, and we also have projects throughout Southeast Asia and partnerships with China and Brazil. So just to give you kind of a sense of what our global footprint is. Within Africa, you can see that we have active projects in Ghana and Senegal and Kenya, and we're forming a partnership as well with South Africa. So now I'm going to pivot to talk. That's kind of a broad, kind of high-level overview of what we do. I'm going to pivot to talk a little bit about the priority setting process that we undertook in the beginning of this year. So what we did was we tried to look at how can we, in the most strategic way possible, identify what the biggest challenges are for pests and diseases of specialty that are affecting specialty crops. And we wanted to have a stakeholder-driven process, and we wanted to also have a way of kind of filtering and evaluating the data that we received. So I'm going to kind of walk through what that process looked like. In January of this year, we opened the window for nominations. There we go, there's my mouse. We opened the window for nominations. We had a 30-day period where any stakeholder other than a crop protection company could submit a need to us, like a crop pest need. So it would be like a certain disease or a certain insect on a crop. And in a 30-day period, we received over 5,000 nominations, so we had a robust response. And then once that window closed, we did an initial cleaning of the data. We tried to clarify any nominations we received that we couldn't understand, any incomplete information, and then we collated all the data and did a first analysis of it. We then sent that analysis, we disaggregated it by project type, by commodity type and commodity group, by pest and disease type, and we sent the data to industry, the crop protection industry, to try to identify solutions. So we asked them, do they have solutions available for these needs? And then once we received the input from the crop protection industry, we started really putting plans into place. So then we started kind of disaggregating different project types. What could we actually do? Where could we actually do it? Evaluating potential project impact. And I'll go into a little bit more of that later on. I will say that we are still in this phase of evaluating which projects we're going to be doing. And that's part of this meeting, is to validate, here's where we've come so far, here's what we're thinking, and to get your feedback. Also to understand if you're interested in partnering on a project. You know, it may be that there are stakeholders joining our call today that haven't participated in a project with the Minor Use Foundation, but who might be interested in doing so in the future. So we also want to learn from you all whether you might be interested in conducting a study with us, or if you're from a crop protection company, you may have a solution to one of the needs that we have, or if you are a researcher and you have expertise in a certain area where we could partner with you. We're also looking to learn more as we try to finalize ultimately which projects we're going to be doing. So now we're at the global and regional priority results validation phase, which we're doing today. So in the past, when we've done priority setting, which we have done several times before, we focused primarily on Codex MRLs. We were primarily looking at trade facilitation and how could we generate data to fill gaps for trade and for growers around the world, but for, in this case, for African growers to reach export markets. But in this iteration of our priority setting process, we opened it up to different kinds of problems outside of Codex. So for example, new solutions is when a grower just needs a solution. They don't necessarily need to trade this or export it, but they are, they're just losing their crop. They might just need it for domestic use. So it's just a lack of a registered solution. Codex MRLs, I think, I've already gone over, are primarily trade facilitative, although they can also be used for domestic MRLs as well. Periodic reviews, we were primarily focused here on codex and chemicals that are coming up for periodic review in codex every 20 years. Chemicals need to be reevaluated in codex. And when that happens, new data is needed. You cannot resubmit the same data for a periodic review. You need to generate new residue data. So areas where new residue data may need to be generated within CCPR, the Codex Committee on Pesticide Residues. We specifically solicited requests for those. And then technology gaps. Technology gaps is similar to a new solution. It's when you need a solution to a specific crop pest combination, but it's where you know of a registration in a third market. So, I'm sitting here in the US. Maybe I know that Canada has a registration for something and I'm interested in getting it registered in my own country. And that's a much easier problem to solve because you already have all the data that you need that's been generated in another country. But it could just be for a domestic need. So we also looked at specific technology gaps. We looked at import tolerances, which are specifically trade related, but whereas Codex could apply to many markets around the world, import tolerances are focused on a specific export market. And then we also asked for just suggestions that individuals might have for special projects that the foundation should take on. So we were looking at 6 different types of nominations. And I'm just going to show the breakdown of nominations by region and by project type. So in terms of regions, Asia was the most, where we got the most nominations from. Africa was very close behind it. Looks like Africa and North America were tied here. And we were including Mexico in North America here. So that was driving a lot of our North America nominations, but Africa had a lot of good representation. And we also were fortunate to partner with CoLead, who will be sharing more information later today, and CABI. And so in addition to some of the country governments and country organizations who submitted priorities, we also received priorities from CoLead, who was able to share some of the priorities that they've identified through their projects in Africa. And then we also got nominations about 16% from South America. I already mentioned North America. We got a small number of nominations in Europe, and in Oceania, about 6%, just shy of 6%. We had 48 countries participate altogether. And then breaking down the nominations by categories. The most prevalent nomination was a request for new solutions, which, as I mentioned, is just needing a solution registered in your country. The IMRL, which is import tolerances, as well as Codex MRLs, the trade facilitative MRLs, we called them, were the second biggest category with 27%. And then periodic reviews were following that, which are also sort of a trade facilitative type of request, because those are ultimately Codex MRLs. And then followed by local registrations, which is sort of an extension of use from one country to another. And then the smallest amount was from suggestions for special projects. And then getting into a little bit of the data in terms of what we saw in these requests. Here's a list of the pests and diseases that were most frequently requested. Thrips, Lepidoptera, fruit flies, anthracnose, Phytophthora, and aphids really topped the list, with thrips and Lepidoptera far and away being the most requested. And then in terms of crop groups, fruiting vegetables and tropical fruit were really the most requested crop groups, pretty substantially. So we're going to be focusing, as you'll hear, going forward on these 2 crop groups specifically, but not exclusively. So I'll talk a little bit about how we're trying to address that going forward. And then I wanted to also share a little information on the specific Africa-specific nominations that we received. So you can see here that the nominations by crop do track somewhat with the trends that I shared earlier, but not completely. Sweet potato and cherry tomato would not fall within the top crop groups that I mentioned, or would macadamia nut. Tomato would fall within, and avocado and chili peppers. So you do see some, and pineapple. So you do see some overlap, but not kind of a complete overlap between the crops of interest in Africa and broad kind of global trends. And then in terms of pests, these were the most commonly requested pests in Africa. And you can kind of, again, contrast those to what we saw within the global requests. Bacterial wilt, false cuddling moth, which would be considered Lepidoptera, aphids featured very high in our global priority list. Fusarium is very high in our global priorities, mealybugs as well, and thrips. So there's a pretty good overlap here between, although not complete overlap, between our top global priorities and the African priorities. I would say there are some key differences. Fall armyworm ranked really high in the African priorities, and the bacterial disease pressure is higher as well. So then now I'm going to kind of go into our analytical, what we did with that data and how we're thinking about projects going forward. And yeah, so we disaggregated the data by crop groups. So we wanted to really understand, could we address these needs by through a crop grouping approach? And we also wanted to look at, did we have very clear trends in terms of priority pests and diseases? As I just shared with you, we've been, analyzing where we see kind of through lines of key pests and diseases that we can focus on. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to be doing around that. And then we cross-analyzed the crop groups by pests and diseases, again, just to pull out the key trends. And we disaggregated the nominations in terms of how could we most easily address these needs, which projects would require much more time, energy, money, commitment, and which could we address relatively quickly and inexpensively. And then finally, this all feeds into what we ultimately chose for our global priorities. So we separated our needs into two tiers. They are done by pest and disease and also crop group. So you can see this is high overlap correlation with what we saw for the Africa priorities as well as for the global priorities. You can see a lot of the same pest and disease represented here. And then as you saw, we really had a strong focus on tropical fruit and fruiting vegetables in terms of the crop groups, but we didn't want to only focus on two crop groups. We want, our mission and our goal is to really address a wide variety of minor crops. And so we felt like if we had just focused on those two crop groups, we would be doing that at the exclusion of many other minor crops. So we made this a kind of more well-rounded set of top priorities, so that we could have, inclusive of many different crop groups, but then still filtering within that sort of diversity of crop groups, what were the top needs expressed. So we still have a strong focus on tropical fruit and fruiting vegetables throughout, but you'll see we also included spices and berries and citrus and cucurbits, other berry and tree nuts, other important crop groups. The difference between tier 1 and tier 2 is we are going to be committing resources, financial resources and staff resources to trying to, over the next 3 years, accomplish 25 projects in these tier 1 priorities. And then for tier 2 projects, we're going to be looking for partnerships, and we're going to be kind of investing our time and human capital, but we won't be investing our financial resources in these projects. But we are going to be doing what we can to try to support these tier 2 priorities as well. So yeah, this is kind of just a broad overview of what our work plan is going to be looking like going forward to address the needs coming out of the priorities we received. And then this is a comparison between the global needs, the tier 1 and tier 2 global needs, and then the Africa needs. So you can see here specifically where the overlap is with the tier 1 and tier 2 projects to the Africa project or Africa needs that could develop into projects in Africa. And here you can also see the countries that had requested the crop pest need. So you can see which countries might be interested perhaps in working on a project to address this need since they had expressed an interest in it initially. So yeah, the pests and diseases all pretty much overlap. You can see different types of Lepidoptera within here. But yeah, there's high level of overlap between the pests, and then you can see the specific crops. These are a little bit kind of more specific than the crop group, but the specific commodities that were requested by the countries. So this could be a good starting point maybe for further discussion about how we could design projects in Africa to address these needs. So in terms of what happens from here, we will be looking at where we can find specific solutions, where we have countries that will partner with us to generate data or work on a local registration. But we work through a public-private partnership model with everything we do. So we work with both the governments and the companies. So we're going to be looking for, as I said, solutions, and then which type of project is this going to be? Are we going to go for a local registration? Are we going to be looking for a new Codex MRL or a Codex MRL set through crop grouping via extrapolation? Are we going to be looking for an import tolerance? Are we going to be looking for periodic reviews? So we're trying to be as opportunistic as possible when we are able to find that yes, data exists, or yes, there's a country that's interested in a specific project, and yes, it aligns with our priorities, the tier 1 and 2 priorities that I mentioned. We are going to be trying to address it. And we're currently kind of still doing analysis on where those specific opportunities are. And it will probably look more like we have kind of a rough work plan, and then we will keep adding things as we go, as we get more and more kind of organic support and partnership for certain projects. As I mentioned, everything will go through public-private partnership model. So a lot of what we're doing is trying to build new relationships to see where solutions exist and where we can actually execute a project well. And then we're going to be evaluating, we have been evaluating all of our projects for trade, environmental, and economic impact. And then finally, we'll be ultimately putting our resources towards projects that will maximize the amount of impact on those dimensions. So this just as a quick review, we're going to be disaggregating projects into these different categories across our tier 1 and tier 2 priorities. And then when we determine that we do want to generate data for a project, and in the past, the Minor Use Foundation has worked a lot to generate data. That's been our kind of primary way of working. So we are quite familiar with data generation. However, when we were assessing these priorities and the outcomes from them, we realized that it's possible to leverage on already existing data for a higher amount of impact. Okay, Melon, I see you coming on, so I'll wrap up. Thank you. And so we will be doing data generation projects, but we're probably going to be doing more on the kind of leveraging on existing data and regulatory capacity building projects relative to the amount of data generation that we're going to be doing. Part of our assessment of data generation projects will be looking at the JMPR schedule, determining suitability for submission, generating data, nominating chemicals to the JMPR schedule, submitting the data packages, and then getting to the MRLs. So we're going to be spending a lot of effort as well, kind of familiarizing ourselves and aligning ourselves with the JMPR schedule over the next few years. Okay. So let me just really quickly say this. When I was talking about our continued emphasis on particular crop groups, we are going to be forming commodity liaison groups for tropical fruit and fruiting vegetables. This will be an opportunity for growers around the world to kind of deepen the discussion around the key pests and diseases affecting those commodity groups. We're going to be producing papers. We're going to be sharing information collaboratively, and identifying which projects, especially the data generation projects, should we take on in those commodity groups. And we are also trying to launch a center of excellence. Well, we will be launching a center of excellence next year in Kenya in collaboration with KFIS. And we're going to be kind of, as we get that off the ground, we're going to be offering both virtual and in-person trainings. These trainings will be very tailored to the priorities and the specific projects that we're doing. And again, this is an area where we welcome your input as we kind of launch this next year. And then other areas for collaboration, technical data sharing, sharing information. If you are a crop protection company and you have data that could be useful in meeting our needs, please reach out and let us know. If you're, as I mentioned, a researcher or in a government organization and you'd like to work with us, please reach out. And we'll be working to build capacity as well. Okay, I'll just skip this. Thank you very much. I also just want to mention we do have some impact stories on our website. You can also check them out at this QR code. We did some studies back in 2012, and then we went back almost 10 years later to meet with growers to talk about whether and how these projects had impacted their lives. And we got some really wonderful stories that you can watch here on our website. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Melon.
Thank you, Anna, for the great presentation. You have really delved into the details of the different nominations that we received. I now would like to welcome Mary Lucy Orange for the next very interactive session with our panelists. Welcome, Mary Lucy.
Thank you very much, Melon, and thank you, Anna Go, for that highlight in terms of the priorities that have been nominated globally, but also looking at specific African needs. I think this session is going to be very important to help us unravel, identify these opportunities, and help us move from problems to solutions. I think in the opening remarks, Ms. Agatha Thuo mentioned that we are going to be looking at solutions to the identified challenges and priorities, if you may like. And to help us do that, we have really a high level of panelists, and we have researchers, we have representatives from the development partners, and we also have government representatives. We also have private sector. In this particular area, we can't achieve much without the private sector interaction and lead. And so we are going to have Melanie Bettman. She is a crop health advisor at CABI, that is Center for Agriculture and Biosciences International. We have Dr. Salu Niasi, current coordinator, Africa Union Inter-Africa Phytosanitary Council, that is AUIAPS. We also have with us a representative from the private sector, and this is Stella Simiyu Mafuko, currently the Director, Regulatory Affairs and Stakeholder Relations for CropLife Africa and Middle East, in short, CLAIM. We have also amongst us the panelists, we have Hakim Mufumbiro, currently head of Division of Food and Agriculture Standards at the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Hakim is the outgoing chair of the CCR Africa. As Hakim, we are very delighted to be hearing from you shortly. And then we have Eduard Lehman. She is a research and innovation manager at COLID. Again, we'll be hearing shortly on the COLID interactions and opportunities when it comes to support for priority areas. We have also Elrita Venter. Elrita is a farmer and also a research associate, and she will be sharing with us her perspectives from a farmer's angle. So this session is estimated to be 30 minutes. So we'll be starting with each panelist asking a question. And for each of the panelists, please put your video on, and then you will unmute and then be able to contribute to the questions that will be answered. Again, reaching out to the participants, please do put on your question on the Q&A area. Okay, so we start now, and we want to start to hear from Edward Lehman. And Edward, really, from the list, the priorities that have been set, we have about 5,000 nominations, 43 of these looking at new solutions. We want to hear from the colleague. How do these priorities align with your, institutional priorities in terms of specialty crops? And how do we identify, functional networks, collaboration to address some of these challenges? You may share also examples where you have any on how these interactions have been able to help us really provide the solutions for these priorities. Edward, you have 4 minutes max.
Thank you, Marie-Lucy. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Really happy to be here. So basically, as colleague, we are a private sector association, and we have been mainly active in African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries. So in those areas where we overlap with the, let's say, geographical scope of the Minor Use Foundation, and especially in Africa today, we see obviously an alignment in terms of the priority crop pest combination that are currently in most needs of solution for protecting, let's say, plant health in general. So, of course, as you mentioned, there was more than 5,000 needs. So we see alignment in priority. COLID has done its own priority setting exercise. We have shared it with the minor use, and I think this is one first step, trying to work collaboratively on aligning the priorities. And we all know that if we work in silos, this will be in a drop in the oceans with so many needs. And at the same time, the registration process or the access to a technology can take a lot of time. An example, for example, in Europe, it takes more than 15 years for getting a registration. And I heard someone said in a conference lately, I can put my children to school within this time. So it's really a long time. It's a bit less in Africa, but we know that there is a need now for more action. So a first step will be, let's say, collaboration or prioritization exercise, aligning, and then spreading, let's say, the work between all the different partners from the public and the private sector to ensure that we tackle as much priority as possible. Also, in terms of let's say, synergy in terms of network and capacity, we can see among ourselves today, but especially among, for example, COLID and minor use, they are complementary skills in terms of technology, let's say, mobilization, but also in terms of activity we've been doing in the past years. As Hannah was mentioning, they were working a lot on generating Emerald data package. COLID did that as well. So there are some data that we can already leverage. And we also worked a lot on registration, ensuring that the product is locally registered. So there is a possibility to join forces on this aspect, working concomitantly on generating data for emeralds, but also generating efficacy data to ensure local registration. And then last point is the joint advocacy, let's say, to drive more investment into minor crop. As Anna was showing today, minor crop are not minor in terms of benefit that they're providing. So maybe we should even change this minor crop definition, but we should also show and advocate that there is a business case behind this. So when we look at the priority crop pest combination, there is a business case and there is a need for more investment to tackle all these priority. And in general, in terms of collaboration, I just wanted to again extend the fact that around this room that there are a lot of capacity that can be joined. We can join forces in order to tackle as much as possible the priority identified by COLID, CABI, Minor Use Foundation, and etc. So I hope I answered to your question, Mary Lucy.
Yeah, thank you, Edward. Indeed, already this is one of those platforms really championing for advocacy. And as you say, perhaps changing of minor crops to just highlight still their importance and therefore driving solutions to them, that would be great. Thanks a lot, Edward, from Khalid. We now want to invite Akim Mufimbiro from the CCA Africa. Akim, Edward referred to some of these areas, data generation, registration at local level. We would like to hear how, through the CCA Africa, you're able to champion for some of these, codex standards, for specialty crops, especially if you could speak to the codex classification code for crop grouping and setting of MRL and specific to specialty crop. We would like to hear what the CCA Africa has been able to do in that front. Thank you. Akim, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mary Lucy, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone on the call. I'm happy to be here. Greetings from Kampala. I think on the broader perspective, countries in Africa heavily rely on, as a first principle, on the work that is undertaken through the Codex Alimentarius, considering that this is one of the robust risk assessment that we can actually be able to rely on in terms of ensuring that the MRLs which are set for whichever commodities that exist are based on sound science, and to that extent, we can actually be able to trust that these would actually be able to offer the food safety objective that we'd actually be able to look out for. One of the mechanisms that we have been engaging, as you mentioned, Mary Lucy earlier, I've been the coordinator for Africa for the last 5 years. We have been promoting, first of all, the area of generation of data, which up to now appears to be one of the limitations that we currently have, especially for, and is cutting across. The approach that we have taken is in Africa currently, one of the food safety issues of importance. When we did a survey in 2018, pesticide residues, aflatoxins, and microbial resistance stood out as one of the key food safety issues for the continent. And as a strategy, we have been able to now promote these as the leading areas for engagement, for discussion with the members, and to ensuring that actually members are able to apply and adopt and implement standards which are developed through the Codex system for these particular either specialty crops or any other commodities. And through this process, we have seen a number of countries now being able to implement the standards. In fact, last year we actually did a study to assess the level of domestication of some of these particular standards, and MRLs for most of these commodities were actually one of those that we asked members to indicate whether they actually are able to implement them within their national systems. And they also indicate that the members in Africa don't have any other option but to actually apply and implement these particular measures and requirements. So I believe the work that is undertaken through the Codex Committee on Pesticide Residues, classification and related areas is critically important for the region, as well as being able to assign the right classification for these particular commodities as a way of ensuring that we can actually be able to obtain MRLs when we actually are able to require them. I think from the previous speaker, I liked the perspective of using the word minor because minor could be used subjectively. In some countries in Africa, these are actually major exported products, and to them, these are actually major products. But by using the terminology as minor, it creates an impression that we shouldn't actually be having a lot of emphasis on them, yet they actually affect livelihoods and are opening up socioeconomic status of some of the countries in Africa. For example, those that heavily depend on exports of fruits and vegetables and many of these other commodities. So I believe with that perspective, we should be able to continue with the engagement. And as a way of strategy, we have been promoting, for example, showcasing the importance of residues in these probably pesticides in crops and related aspects while we are celebrating World Food Safety Day. And I believe even the last few sessions, we have actually put a spotlight on why it's important for the members in Africa to focus in this particular area, and we are seeing very good results to that extent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hakim, for those remarks and really talking to the core of the discussion today. And yes, seems these crops are not minor crops anymore. They are important: avocado, macadamia, sweet potato, and I'll not be at peace if we mention that okra is a minor crop for the West Africa, quite important crop. And therefore, we'd like to hear from the coordinator, AU IAPS. What are some of these opportunities given these crops, okra, the ones I've mentioned, sweet potatoes, are important not only for, nutrition, but driving the livelihoods of most farmers in Africa? What are the opportunities from where you stand and also from your member state that will help us to make available some of these crop protection products, increasing, diversifying this toolbox for the farmers to be able to manage the pest for these crops? So, Salu, can we hear from you? And if you could also pick from what Hakim has mentioned. Salu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary Lucy, and thanks also to colleagues from Minor Use Foundation for organizing this. And I take the opportunity to greet everyone here in the panel and the followers and the participants. So I think before we can talk about all these opportunities, it's very important that we understand really what are really the constraints that needs to be addressed. And among those constraints, of course, we can talk about the seed system itself and also the aspect of standards. And we should not also ignore the fact that we have also very limited weak infrastructure, weak compliance, as well as we have a lot of a system that is fragmented across Africa. If you look at, when we talk about minor crops, we don't have sort of like a harmonized or a consolidated kind of production system. So in that aspect, therefore, if you want to really tap from the opportunities that are there, we need to consider maybe several aspects. That is, first of all, the regional market through the AFCFTA, which is really trying to promote the continental free trade area. We should also be able to do a mapping of the markets, the niche that are there, the premium markets, because this, okay, in as much as we are discussing about agreeing what minor crops are, but I do understand that these are crops of high value that are also, in terms of income, they generate a lot of income. In that regard, in that perspective, therefore, it can really revolutionize our agricultural system, especially if you take into account the fact that we have millions of women and youth who could be engaged in that system if it is well guided and well organized to, bring more income that it used to do. Think of okra, for instance. You mentioned it. It's one of the most consumed commodities in West Africa. But when we talk about a disease such as the cotton jacket that came, everybody think of cotton, but the same pests affect okra. So people don't see that actually that there could be a relationship between the expansion and the spread of that disease on the food system, which is actually okra, and hibiscus also is affected. But nobody talks about the hibiscus. The pest is named after cotton, but cotton is a relative to okra and hibiscus. So this is, for instance, one of the aspects. The other aspect that I would have, mentioned here is the fact that we don't talk too much about value addition from the African Union perspective. If you want to really make these crops more visible, not to become minor crops, because the term minor is a bit demeaning, if I must say. Maybe we need to discuss this in another forum. But these are very important crops. Therefore, we need to really make them more visible, branding and also value addition, so that it can also create new enterprise and new job, taking into account the intra-Africa trade. Maybe the last but not least is entrepreneurship, and how to maybe be involved maybe in import substitutions, and maybe bring them in urban food system. I am from West Africa and I've lived in Nairobi, but over the past 15 years, I've seen a lot of commodities from West Africa that are now coming now in the market in Nairobi. And you can see the same in Ethiopia as well. The food system is really changing. So there's a lot for the minor use crops, the minor crops actually, in the general context of the African Union. It's an opportunity for the continent.
Thank you, Dr. Salu, for those sentiments. Indeed, the food systems is changing because consumer needs are also expanding, and the farmers are ready to provide these products to the consumers. And it would be good now to hear from a farmer, that is Elrita Venter. Do these challenges that have been mentioned, the priorities, really resonate with you? Is it something that you can comment on? Elrita is a farmer growing pomegranate, an important and quite expensive fruit, really. So, Elrita, maybe we hear from you. Do these challenges align with your needs? Yeah, please share with us.
Thank you, Mary Lucy, and hi to everybody. Yes, I have to wear two hats now, and for this one, the farmer hat. Yeah, I would say the proposed priorities clearly align with the challenges farmers are experiencing, especially with the Foundation's comprehensive evaluation and prioritization processes of the applications that they received across, all crop profiles, not only pomegranates. It's definitely making also a meaningful impact through the process of achieving successful outcomes as well. But I think we all agree that the challenges associated with legitimizing new chemical and biological crop protection remedies for minor crops are numerous and very complex. It looks very straightforward and easy and easy to comprehend in the presentation that Anna gave. Thank you, Anna, for that good presentation and reflection of the realities. And I think also for the Foundation being a non-profit organization, I believe that the Foundation would also be able to accommodate even more and additional African minor crop priorities with more collaboration maybe, and support of more stakeholders with corresponding goals. I think that would be quite important, and even to enhance participation from the producers level. I think the reality is that minor crop producers in Africa are rarely organized within formal association structures, especially in Africa, as I said, unlike the major other commodities and commodity groups, like, for instance, a citrus producing association. And they benefit especially then from strong and established industry support systems. And obviously have financial backing. So I think it will be great if we could maybe look into or investigate the possibility of starting to get stronger emphasis and even developing like data basis or information basis to include the producers on producer level as well. To be able to contribute and emphasize more the realities and issues that they have to deal with.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. You've confirmed that these challenges really align with what farmers are experiencing, and especially where, there's no organized grouping, as you say, the Citrus Association. And Stella, we'd like to hear from you, especially representing the private sector, giving us, some of these solutions that we use to manage this stress. As a representative from the CropLife Africa Middle East, really you had the agency, you've seen also and had the needs and the priorities. How can your members be at the forefront of effectively supporting registration of this new 43% requests of the priority was saying new solutions? How can we accelerate provision of this new solution, expanding what I call the farmer toolbox? What is your take on this, Stella? Stella, you are muted. Please unmute.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Lucy, and thank you, Minor Youth Foundation, for having us in this conversation, and the rest of the partners on the call, especially the panelists. I just want to echo the urgency to support the minor youth sector. As you know, innovation is really at the core of industry to bring products on the market that respond to the challenges that the farmers face. And as you have rightly said, minor crops are really the major crops for Africa, and because this is where most of the smallholder farmers derive livelihoods, especially when they engage in export market. We also know that investment in the tools that support minor use crops is one of the key challenges, and it requires a lot of time, up to 12 years, to produce one molecule. It also requires a lot of money in terms of investing in all the back end work before a molecule is presented for registration. So this priority setting exercise is really one step ahead. And now that the needs are known, I think one of the ways is first to disseminate the information of the new solutions being searched for to all the industry and invite them to come forward to participate. As you know, that the industry is also looking at expanding their portfolio in terms of bringing low-risk products to be used by farmers, also bringing biologicals in the market. And some of those challenges to do with the environment for their investment require joint advocacy, as has been rightly said. It requires sometimes joint investment and bringing in on the table more partners to work on one area, one commodity, one crop, one pest. This way, then the availability of these products can be made faster. I just want to perhaps indicate that a predictable regulatory environment will attract this innovation. What do I mean by this? One, how do we fast track the registrations on the part of the regulators? And this is the support that the industry is seeking. How do we then create that regional or national priority to fast track? How do we improve the registration efficiency? And some of these countries have put in place mechanisms, for instance, e-submission that allows faster and easier registrations. Also, the aspect of risk assessment, which I have had minor use, is investing in raising the capacity for these countries to be able to assess faster the dossiers, perhaps look at data waivers, look at joint reviews, as some of the regions are doing that. And then registration extension is key, following crop grouping. So there are various mechanisms that really require not only the industry, but also require that the other partners on the table and many more come together and agree to move and make the investment climate, I would call it climate, more accommodative to new solutions coming in. I'd like to stop there and maybe take it again.
Thank you, Stella, highlighting this important area of public-private partnerships, enhancing the business environment and looking at the registration regulations that are supportive to enable the identification and also support innovation of new products. I think because of time, probably we just hear from one additional panelist, and then we have a bit of wrap up by Melon. If there is opportunity to ask another question, we'll do that. So now, really going into Melanie Bettman, talk to us about the CABI's pesticide risk reduction approach, and where possible, you can touch a bit on the technology gaps that are mentioned by Stella. How are you supporting some of this? You have, unfortunately, Melanie, 3 minutes starting now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Mary Lucy, for your question. Greetings to everyone. I'm really happy and honored to be part of this panel. Okay, so what are some things that CABI is doing in this area? So as a policy, CABI promotes the uptake of sustainable plant health management through the principles of integrated pest management. So we pay quite some attention to, of course, the chemical controls, but also cultural controls, biological controls, and these things. This can, I think, help to address some of the gaps where maybe there's not a ton of solutions registered, but in combination with an IPM approach, hopefully you can get closer to being able to manage some of these pests. So through projects and programs like PlantWise Plus, CABI works with partners in Africa and beyond to identify low-risk IPM solutions for a wide range of fruits, vegetables, and other specialty crops. So for example, we have some active work on crops like tomato, chilies, onions, avocado, and spices like coriander. Through this work, one of the things that we've done is with partners is to develop like hundreds, literally hundreds, thousands of guidelines and extension materials to support implementation of IPM. So this is potentially a good resource also for, when you have a crop pest problem to identify potential solutions. You can search the PlantWise Plus Knowledge Bank by country, crop, pest, even pesticide. For instance, the other day I got a question about, the pesticide that was being used to manage a certain pest. There were some issues where it was no longer appropriate to use that. And so we used the KB, the knowledge bank, to help identify kind of IPM package that could be used to substitute for this pesticide. Another good resource is the bioprotection portal, which has information on registrations of biopesticides for 50 countries around the world. That's also one that can be used to support and address these technology gaps. CABI also works with partners to test IPM solutions. So a lot of times what you can find in a database, for various reasons, it may not be the right solution on the ground. So we do trials or support trials, also support access through liaison with the private sector, and then taking it through to training and demonstrations. We've mentioned or heard mention of Codex crop grouping. We've supported training on that, for instance, with the industry, biopesticide registration, training, and fast tracking. And anyway, I think one of the speakers mentioned at the start that there's a lot of room for collaboration. I agree completely. I think in general, CABI is happy to partner, and feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you. Really bringing it all together. I think we started with 5,000 priority nominations, 53 of them new solutions. We've heard how collaboration can help us really help farmers to be able to have access and make this new innovation for pest management available. Codex, we've heard about the standards that you are advocating for, and it's good to note that there's increasing domestication of these standards that are set by Codex, crop grouping being one of them, helping in setting crop group MRL. AUI apps, I think your call is clear. no minor crops. These are important crops, and we have to provide solution for these farmers. Elrita, you have validated this some of these priorities that have been set, and claim you said we are ready to work, but make the registration, the regulations more easy. Let us work together to provide solutions that the farmers need, but we need a good business environment to help us produce these innovations. And Melanie, you have talked about capacity building and tools that help us to have access to this information and build capacity to be able to review these products and test them and also register. So really our session, this first session is done. And if there is time, we can come back to some of the questions that will help us understand more of this in this topic. But for now, I think I want to go back to Melon for guidance. So Melon, back to you. And thank you very much, the panelists, for preparing and sharing with us. We'll come back to you. You are not off the hook yet. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Melon.
Mary Lucy. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the panelists. I would like to get to the almost end of our presentation. And at this point, I have a Mentimeter that I would want us to share. It will take us a few minutes, so I would want that you can just take your phone and then you scan this QR code, or you use this, trying to get it out. You scan your QR code or you use this code with your phone on www.menti.com. Please go to it on your phones, www.menti.com. And then you can enter this code where you're asked for you to have a survey. Sasi, if you can be able to put this code on the... Yes, I'm seeing we have participants who are active. Yes, you can, another 2-3 seconds, www.menti.com, so that we can be able to just get some information on what your feelings are regarding the nominations that we have put across. Another half a minute for you to get to mentimeter.com, www.menti.com. So our first question there, Sasi, if you would put that in the chat, the code, we would want to find out which are the top 3 pests of concern to you in Africa. So you can select the 3 pests of concern between aphids, fruit flies, thrips, whiteflies, false coding moth, and leaf miners. Thank you. We can see thrips is leading. We have fruit flies 1-1. Yes, please. Yes. Which are the top 3 insect pests of concern to you in Africa? Okay, you will be free. You can be able to go back to that Mentimeter and vote when we are also done. The second question, in your opinion, please rank the following crops affected by anthracnose disease in order of importance: avocado, mango, and chili pepper. Which are the most important for you in the ranking as affected by avocado? Yes, this is great. You can continue doing that. Is it mango? Is it avocado? Is it chili pepper? Yes, 11 people have already been able to vote for that. Yes. Great. So we will give you this link on your email. You can go back and do the same. Please rank the following crops affected by aphids in order of importance to Africa. So we have African nightshade, African nut, sesame seed, cotton, and amaranth. Kindly vote for that too. Which ones do you think, in your opinion, they are most affected by aphids? Yes. Okay, I will be taking some 5 more minutes from you, and my apologies. but we are almost done. Then we go to the next question. Which one of the following crops do you feel they are most affected by fusarium? We have tomato, cucumber, banana, chili pepper, eggplant, and pineapple. Please go ahead and vote. So this information will also contribute to the priorities that we have selected. So just know how important it is for us to know your opinion regarding these diseases and pests. So if I progress, do you think these priorities reflect the challenges affecting specialty crop growers in Africa? Is it a yes? Is it a no? We are really keen to know that. Yes, we have 2 for yes. Do you think they really reflect the challenges? And we will send a survey form after this to just seek from you. Do you think, what are the options that you feel like were not adequately taken care of that you think we can also consider as we go on when making our programs? Then propose any specialty crop pest issue that you feel the Minor Use Foundation should consider in future programs. Feel free to say thrips in tomatoes, leaf miners in tomatoes. You can be able to just indicate so that we can get that feedback from you, because we value our working together. We value your priorities. So you can mention any priority crop, and you also mention the pest. Yes, leaf miner in tomato. Yes, tutor absolute in tomato. Peanut. If you can be able to say what is the challenge in peanut, in chili pepper, banana bunchy top virus. Yes. Tutor absoluta, mites in avocado. Yes, can we get about 5 more? And please go back to that Mentimeter. You can fill it again just to make sure that we get your feedback on the same. Okay, another 2 more if we can get that. Yes, passia mites in avocado. It is appearing twice. Just seeds on vegetables. Okay, we will add this to your recommendation. Yes, aflatoxins in maize. Yes, thank you. And which organizations in your country work in the crop protection industry? You can mention them. Even if you don't have the full name, you can acronym them. We will be able to reach out to them and see how best we can work together. So yes, we have CALRO in your countries. Which organizations? Yes, ICIPE, PCPB. Yes, thank you. Please add. Yes. Thank you. CABI, PPSD. Yes, DPV. Okay. KEFIS, ICGB, COPAT. Thank you very much. And finally, what is the organization we're representing? Is it from the academia? Is it research? Is it government? Is it a pesticide company? Is it a development partner? Please just mention it for us. Yes, we have research. Academia, development partner. Thank you for coming. We really value you having joined us today. Thank you. Good. Research has most of them. Pesticide companies. Yes, please. 2 more to go. Okay. So please feel free to continue with that Mentimeter. We will be so happy to get to know your feedback. And at this moment, I want to take this opportunity to thank each one of you, all the participants, for taking time to come. In your busy schedules, you were able to come. The panelists, you prepared very seriously for this. Thank you for investing your time. And we also want to thank the general overview of the meeting, showing that we need to keep working together to be able to respond to the minor crops. And maybe we need to consider calling them another name and not a minor crop. So I would like that we close the meeting. If you have any question that you would want to us to respond to, I am available to respond. The entire team from the Minor Use Foundation, all our panelists, you have questions for them, please ask us for their emails. We will provide you so that you can be able to reach out to them. So thank you so much on behalf of the Minor Youth Foundation, on behalf of the entire board and CEO. Thank you so much for coming, and we really appreciate for your time. Thank you. Bye-bye.